The breakup didn't feel real at first. It landed like a punch Jasmine never saw coming, and the cameras captured that moment when her eyes stopped blinking and her breath caught halfway in her chest. She stood there, frozen, trying to understand how everything she fought for could collapse in a single conversation. Her voice cracked before any words came out, and when they did, they were jagged and thin. The crew exchanged quick glances, unsure whether to keep rolling or step back, because even for reality TV, this felt too raw. Jasmine tried to steady herself by pacing the small room, each step louder than the last, as if grounding her feet would keep her from breaking apart. She wiped her face, then wiped it again, but the tears kept returning faster than she could chase them away. She kept whispering that this couldn't be happening, that she didn't come this far to lose everything now. The silence around her made her voice seem even smaller, swallowed by the shock hanging in the air. One producer quietly asked the camera operator if they should cut, but no one wanted to make the call. The conflict wasn't just on Jasmine's face anymore. It was behind the lens. The crew had watched her fight, sacrifice, argue, cry, and hope for months. They knew she was unpredictable, but they also knew heartbreak hits her harder than most. Someone stepped out of the room to ask a supervisor whether they should step in, and even that hesitation added to the tension. Jasmine sensed them pulling away and grew more frantic, because now it felt like everyone was leaving. Between her breaths and sobs, she kept reaching for answers that weren't there. She replayed the last conversation in her mind, the tone of Matt's voice, the way he avoided looking directly at her. She tried to convince herself it was temporary, that couples fight all the time, that he couldn't just walk away after everything. But the more she tried to rationalize, the clearer it became that something had shifted long before this moment. And then, almost by accident, she mentioned something the room didn't expect, a vague reference to a woman Matt had been talking to. She didn't give details, just a name she said she recognized from a message she wasn't supposed to see. The crew exchanged another round of uneasy looks, realizing there was much more to this breakup than Jasmine originally claimed. She suddenly stopped pacing, her eyes narrowing with a mixture of fear and certainty, and the room went unbelievably still. As she took a shaky breath, she made it clear she wasn't done. She was going to find out the truth, and she was going to confront someone. The shock of the breakup didn't fade for Jasmine. It deepened. Once the initial storm of tears slowed, something heavier settled in, a tightening in her chest that wasn't just heartbreak but realization. She kept replaying everything Matt had said in the weeks leading up to this moment, searching for signs she missed. Had he been drifting away long before she noticed? Was there a point when he had already checked out but stayed physically present because cameras were rolling? That was the question gnawing at her now. Not the breakup itself, but the idea she might have been living beside a man who mentally walked out long before he physically did. She curled into the corner of the couch, clutching her phone as if it were the only stable thing left in her life. After a long silence, she whispered Gino's name. It wasn't anger or nostalgia, it was desperation. She wanted someone who knew her history, her worst moments, her survival mode. She dialed his number slowly, knowing full well the world would judge her for it. But she wasn't thinking about optics. She was thinking about survival. And in that moment, Gino was the only person who had truly witnessed all her emotional extremes. When he answered, his voice was calm, almost too calm compared to the chaos she was drowning in. He didn't sound surprised, which unsettled her even more. It was as if he had expected her to reach out eventually. She tried to explain what happened between sobs and tangled sentences. She rambled about Matt walking out, about the other woman she suspected, about the production crew hovering at a distance like they were watching a car crash they couldn't stop. Gino didn't feed her panic. He didn't tell her what she wanted to hear either. His words were steady and measured. He told her she needed to breathe, to take things one step at a time, and most importantly, not to destroy herself over someone who seemed already halfway gone. He wasn't sugarcoating anything. He wasn't attacking Matt, but he wasn't defending him either. It was a balanced tone Jasmine rarely heard from him during their relationship, and it made her feel both comforted and confronted. The calmness forced her to slow down and actually think instead of spiraling. But while Gino was trying to ground her, the outside world was doing the opposite. Clips of the breakup scene leaked online almost immediately. A few seconds of Jasmine crying and Matt looking detached were enough to ignite social media. Fans began dissecting every frame, arguing about who was right, who was manipulating whom, who had been lying all season. Jasmine's supporters accused Matt of emotional betrayal. Matt's defenders insisted Jasmine had pushed him too far. Even casual viewers jumped in, escalating the drama with hashtags and theories. The noise online grew so loud the cast members themselves couldn't ignore it. Producers monitored the trending comments, sensing the episode was spiraling into something bigger than expected. Jasmine saw some of the posts, and the mix of sympathy and criticism hit her from every direction. She felt exposed in a way she wasn't prepared for, especially because she still didn't know the full truth behind Matt's sudden coldness. The momentum kept climbing as more users pieced together screenshots of Matt's recent online activity. His likes, his follows, his comments. Nothing was explicit, but the pattern painted a picture that suggested another woman was in his orbit long before Jasmine realized it. Fans began tagging her publicly, demanding answers, demanding honesty from Matt, demanding the production step in. What really turned the situation volatile was a short clip of Matt laughing at a bar with friends the night after the breakup scene was filmed. Someone recorded it on their phone, and once it hit social media, the reaction was immediate. People were furious. Not because he was out, but because he looked carefree in a way that contradicted everything he told Jasmine about needing space and emotional clarity. And just as the noise reached its peak, word spread of a particular comment Matt made to someone off camera. Something teasing, something dismissive, something that didn't match the image he had been presenting. It was the spark that pushed Jasmine from heartbreak into something sharper, something closer to confrontation. The episode didn't answer the new questions swirling around him, but it made one thing clear. Matt's public behavior wasn't going unnoticed anymore, and a lot of people were getting angry. The cameras didn't stop rolling, but the tension on set was almost tangible. Crew members whispered among themselves, debating how much footage to capture and when to intervene, knowing every second could make or break the story and the reputations involved. There was a fine line between documenting reality and crossing into exploitation, and it felt like everyone was teetering on the edge. Jasmine, still raw from the breakup, noticed the quiet distance of the crew, and it only made her feel more isolated. Their hesitation was a reminder. No one was going to step in to shield her, not really. Behind the scenes, the producers faced their own dilemmas. Some argued for more intimate coverage of Jasmine's reaction, believing it would drive the narrative and boost engagement. Others hesitated, worried about crossing ethical boundaries or pushing the cast beyond their emotional limits. In the background, the network was watching too, tracking social media trends and fan reactions. Every like, retweet, and comment was a signal. Ratings were at stake, reputations were at stake, and in that space between reality and production, the cast were caught like chess pieces. The tension spilled into measurable consequences. Reports surfaced that Andre and Elizabeth, who had pushed against production rules in previous episodes, faced temporary restrictions. Crew sources confirmed certain privileges were pulled and movement on set was limited for some. Jasmine herself wasn't formally reprimanded, but the unspoken scrutiny was relentless. Every glance from a producer, every subtle question in a confessional carried weight. The environment became almost surgical. Personal trauma was being observed, framed, and packaged for maximum impact. Online, the discussion exploded. Fans argued over production responsibility versus personal accountability. Some praised the crew for capturing the emotional truth. Others criticized them for amplifying pain for ratings. Memes, clips, and fan theories flooded platforms, each new post ratcheting tension higher. Comments dissected every word, every glance, every silent pause between Jasmine and Matt. Social media became an echo chamber of outrage, empathy, and speculation, feeding back into what was happening on camera. The emotional arc of the story tightened further as Matt's public behavior collided with the scrutiny online. Fans tracked every new post, interpreting smiles, likes, and interactions as statements. Jasmine saw the patterns too, and her frustration boiled alongside heartbreak. Every public display by Matt became a puzzle piece she had to fit into her narrative of betrayal. Gino's earlier calm guidance clashed with the chaos outside her apartment and in the digital sphere, leaving her suspended between clarity and confusion. Production, social media, and personal heartbreak intertwined in a relentless rhythm, each feeding the other. The viewer's eyes were glued not just to the story of betrayal, but to the mechanics of how it was being told. Every camera angle, every editing choice, every posted clip had consequences, and everyone knew it. It wasn't just an emotional episode anymore, it was a test of control, influence, and perception. Then came the subtle signal that nothing would stay contained. A short, mysterious clip appeared online. Jasmine walking away from the house after a heated exchange, but this time the tension in her expression suggested something bigger was brewing. No words, no context, just a pause heavy enough to make the entire fan base speculate. The camera had captured a fleeting moment, but its impact was electric. Comments surged, theories multiplied, and the questions began to stack. What would Jasmine do next? Could Matt face any real accountability? Would production intervene or stay silent? Everything pointed toward one unavoidable truth. The fallout was far from over, and the next move, whether from Jasmine, Matt, or production, would change everything. The week's drama left everyone reeling, and by now it's clear how fragile the line between private heartbreak and public spectacle really is. Jasmine's pain, raw and unfiltered, was no longer just hers to process. It became a storyline, a series of moments carefully observed, captured, and amplified. Each tear, each hesitant step, each glance at a phone screen carried weight beyond the personal. The cameras and the crew didn't just document, they shaped how the story unfolded, deciding which moments to highlight, which to linger on, and which to cut. And social media, with its constant commentary and instant judgment, turned those fragments into collective drama that neither the cast nor the production could ignore. The unresolved conflicts are still hanging in the air. Matt's new connection remains mostly off camera, a teasing presence that keeps viewers guessing and fans reacting. Jasmine is left navigating the storm, balancing heartbreak, public attention, and the pressure of an audience that watches every decision she makes. Gino remains the calm anchor, a reminder that some boundaries are unbreakable, but even that stability is tested when the world feels like it's closing in. Meanwhile, production continues to maneuver behind the scenes, weighing the ethics of filming against the undeniable pull of high-stakes storytelling. Every move is scrutinized, every reaction analyzed, and every post online fuels the narrative further. What makes this episode stand out isn't just the betrayal or the tears, it's the way it captures the push and pull between human emotion and the machinery of reality television. Moments that might have stayed private now ripple across screens and platforms, turning personal experience into cultural conversation. The tension is layered. Heartbreak meets strategy, private pain meets public spectacle, and every choice feels magnified. Jasmine's journey is a reminder that reality TV doesn't just show conflict, it relies on it, shaping lives even as it entertains millions. And yet, even in all this chaos, one thing is certain. The story isn't finished. The next developments promise to dig even deeper into these tensions, exploring who will stand, who will fall, and how much control anyone really has over the narrative. The questions left unanswered now set the stage for what comes next. And if you think this episode was intense, wait until the following moments unfold. The next chapter promises twists that could redefine everything we've seen so far.